All right, guys, today I want to talk a little bit about consistency and why it's not enough. So, a lot of people will tell you that you just have to be consistent. Like, you'll hear it all the time, whether it be results in the gym or any goal that you're chasing after, you just have to be consistent. But at the end of the day, consistency is not enough. So, I'm going to relate this to a little bit of my story and what I see also with people in the gym, right? So, just my entire life going to the gym, I would go to the gym year after year, and there'd be certain people that are going to the gym and they look exactly the same. Week after week, month after month, year after year, they look literally like nothing's changed. They're lifting the same amount of weight, they have the same exact physique, and they're still doing the same things that they did years ago, right? And that's what the definition of insanity is, right? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. If you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. We all know this. Nothing changes if nothing changes. So if you're not seeing results and you're just continuing to do the same thing, that's insanity. That's insanity. Like, what's the point? You're essentially wasting your time. As humans, we always want to progress forward in order to, I guess, feel happy or content with life. Like, as humans, we're not content with just being stagnant. There's nothing wrong with self-love and loving yourself, but at the end of the day, you should love yourself enough to continue to want to improve. This is called having a growth mindset. We're not meant to be complacent, as I said. We're not meant to stagnate. As humans, we're meant to constantly evolve, both mentally and physically. So I don't believe in maintaining. I believe in constantly pressing forward in some area of your life. And with the concept of consistency, this is what I'm talking about. As I said, you'll see the same people. They're very consistent. They are very consistent. They'll go to the gym, right? But as I said earlier, they're not seeing any results. There's literally no change. So they're essentially just going and wasting their time. Like, I'm not going to completely say that it's a complete waste of time, because at least they're staying active, they're staying fit, they're at least maintaining where they're at. But most of those people, I believe, aren't going just to maintain, right? They actually want to improve something. There's a lot of people that genuinely want to get bigger. They want to get stronger, but they're not getting anywhere. And they're just doing random things at the gym. They'll see something online, like a random workout, and they'll try to copy it, or they'll just go in and just hit certain machines trying to hit certain body parts, and it might work at first, right? That can work at first, because a lot of times you'll get the newbie gains when you first start going to the gym. So you could just about pick up any dumbbell, and next thing you know, you're going to get stronger, put on a little muscle. But at some point, you're just going to completely stagnate if you don't have a structured plan and approach. So the way I would relate this to myself, this is why I thought of this. So I've been posting for about 6 months on social media. And it wasn't until I started to really reflect that I realized that I was bullshitting myself. I thought I was posting at least once a day, sometimes 2, 3, and even up to like 4 or 5 times a day. But I didn't really take into account like the couple days that I kind of backed off, I didn't post. And, aside from that, I was consistent, right? I put out almost 200 posts in the past, less than 6 months, right? And the problem was I was relatively consistent. I was putting out a lot of volume, but it was not structured. A lot of times I found myself just posting for the sake of posting. There was no structure or thought behind it. My audience doesn't know what to expect from my content. It was pretty much just me throwing shit against the wall sometimes, random mindset. But at the end of the day, I was just another guy posting random motivational videos sometimes. It wasn't even always me speaking, right? It would sometimes just be like some random audio over it. So I'm just some random guy lifting, so some random audio. And sometimes it would be something funny. Sometimes it'd be something educational. And, there's nothing wrong with that. It's social media. At the end of the day, you want to post whatever you feel like. But sometimes it wasn't even what I felt like. It was just posting for the sake of posting, just to be consistent, right? And as I said, consistency isn't everything. I have been borderline pushing 200 posts. And on Instagram, I only have 68 followers with almost 200 posts over, almost a 6-month period. And half of my followers are pretty much people that I know. So, I'm practically at 30 followers from random people actually deciding, they're interested in my content. And at the end of the day, as I said, my page didn't really reflect any kind of structure. Like I said, one video would be something funny, one thing would be motivational, one thing would be educational, one thing would be a random rant that I had, and that wasn't going to get me anywhere. And you guys need to apply that to all of the goals that you have in 2026. You have to go into 2026 with intention. You have to know what you want, out of life and who you want to become. And then you have to create a structured plan to get there. Because without a plan, you're never actually going to get to your goal. A goal without a written plan is just, a dream, basically. If you're not actually planning, you're planning to fail. We've all heard that quote. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you have to have a plan. You have to have intention. You have to know what you want and who you want to become. And that's going to be your driving force. That's going to keep you consistent. But again, you need structure to get there. So if you're going to the gym, you have to have a structured plan. You have to have even a meal plan to get you there, because you can't just eat whatever you want, right? There's a certain amount of protein you need to intake, calories. If you're trying to lose weight, you want to be in a caloric deficit, or if you want to gain weight, you have to be in a caloric surplus, because if you don't know what you're eating and how much, it's really hard to efficiently get to your goal, and you're just going to be kind of all over the place, right? But if you have a proven roadmap, there is literally information online where it's down to a science, to where it would be essentially impossible for you not to start making progress if you actually apply the things that science has proven to get results, right? And I'm kind of going on a random tangent. I feel like I repeat a lot of things, but at the end of the day, a lot of us need to hear the same thing sometimes 10, 20, 100 times before it just randomly clicks. A lot of us don't learn things the first time we hear them, but the most successful people can learn from the mistakes of others and apply that right away. There's not as much of a gap between what they learned and the action they're taking to apply that to their life. A lot of us wait till like some dire consequence happens before we start applying the lessons we've learned. And, I'm guilty of that as well. But I just wanted to leave you guys with that for 2026. Go into the year with intention, as I said. I'm repeating myself again, but have a plan, know who you are and who you want to become, and have a plan to achieve that. And you can achieve literally anything in 2026. You'd be amazed what 6 months of locking in can do. But I will see you guys in the next video. I'm going to try to get something out about, having a transformation for yourself in 2026. And I'm going to come out with some vlogs from the Philippines as well, where I'm working out with my cousins like that, just show you guys a little day in the life. But anyways, I hope you guys achieve all of your goals in 2026. And I hope you join me on this journey of growing my social media and just, improving my content and giving people the information they need to be successful, not only in the gym, but in life. Happy New Year, guys.